Good morning and welcome to our Facebook Live event. My name is Daryl Creedon and I'm the Director of Client Services here at Centennial College, and I'll be your moderator today. Our thoughts are with all those affected by this unforgiving disease, as well as those affected by the tragedy in Nova Scotia. We know that the events over the last 2 months have caused a great deal of anxiety for many people, and in particular, our students. And we know you have questions, and we are doing our best to provide you with answers, whether through our website, over the phone, or on social media. And that's what brings us here today. We want to answer your questions and hopefully in doing so, provide some clarity for you as you map out your educational journey over the next few months. Joining me today are Dr. Marilyn Harry, Vice President, Academic and Chief Learning Officer, and Dr. Neil Bedell, Vice President, Student Success. With over 2 decades as a leading educator and professional trainer, Marilyn is dedicated to inspiring transformational, experiential, inclusive, and student-centered leadership and learning. As Centennial's Vice President, Academic and Chief Learning Officer, she champions student success through teaching and learning excellence, academic quality, and reflective leadership practice. Neil has been working with Centennial's amazing student life team for about 6 years. Neil, who transitioned to Vice Post, for a little more information on your behalf, I won't hesitate to do so. Please note, we have also included several links to important information you can find on our website, as well as contact information for school staff who could also assist you. And with that, let's get started with our first question. Neil and Marilyn, we've heard a bit about your backgrounds, but you're also part of this interesting, I would probably say challenging and dynamic environment. What have been your biggest stressors and how are you working through stress and anxiety?
Thanks, Daryl, and good morning, everyone, and really glad to have the opportunity to connect and engage with our students. I think for me, probably the biggest stressor has been the semester and its impact on students. This has been an absolutely unprecedented time for colleges and universities all across Canada and really all over the world. So I think that's definitely been the thing that's most kept me up at night. My daughter as well, who's living with me here in self-isolation along with my partner, who's 23, is finishing her degree at a distance. And so that's been a stress as well, some of the uncertainty and the impact that I've seen firsthand with her. And you asked about coping. I think, probably the most effective coping strategy for me these days has been regulating my intake of the relentless news cycle and limiting myself to kind of morning and evening. And also at the end of the day, the three of us just coming together and spending an hour or so just talking and making dinner together and connecting with family and loved ones over Zoom in the evenings or on weekends.
Thank you, Marilyn. And Neil.
Well, thanks for this question, and hello to everybody out there, and thanks for investing your time into joining us here. So for me, yeah, no, Gerald, challenging is probably more of the term than interesting, and it has been challenging and worrisome because and having interacted with a lot of the students through email and in various chat forums, the stress is real, the anxiety is real, and part of the stress is wanting to do our best, my best, to make this as easy as possible and as clear as possible for you going forward from the work side of my life. From the personal perspective, I have 2 elderly parents who are encroaching on 80, whose health is not fantastic. And my partner and my own sister have all been laid off as a result of this as well. So there's those pieces that cause a little bit of personal strain as well. But like Marilyn, trying to regulate the amount of anxiety provoking news and also balancing that with exercising. So I think the neighbors have seen me in my window doing the body attack online classes and trying to move as well as possible. And also baking has been a good stress relief, though with that comes the additional stress of what baking does to your body. And I stepped on a scale yesterday and it wasn't good.
Thank you, Neil. And you've got a cat too, which also helps. Pets are great for stress relief.
Yes, yes. Sirius Black, Harry Potter fan. You might see him in the screen because he enjoys Facebook Live and Zoom events.
Excellent. Next question, and there's sort of two pieces to this, and one we'll direct to Marilyn first. Can you remind students about upcoming important dates regarding the summer semester, since winter has just finished? I'm sure they'll be eager to find out more about summer.
Thanks, Daryl. Yeah, so for the summer semester, as you know, we've delayed that by 3 weeks. So the summer semester start date is May 21st, and that summer semester is going to run to August 21st, sorry, May 25th.
So with respect to fees and registration, the fees are due on Monday, May 4th. And what this means for domestic students is if you are a student who receives OSAP, it's a $200 deposit. And if you do not receive OSAP, it is a $500 deposit. For international students, the deposit is the full amount of your tuition, and that is also due on May 4th. And what that then does is it opens up registration for your courses. And so on May 5th, any new semester 1 student will be able to go in and register, and also students who are graduating, who are in their final semester, and all other continuing students, your registration date is then May 5th. All of that said, and going back to the financial piece, we also appreciate that this is an unprecedented time and finances are available to folks to various extents. And for many of us, the financial resourcing is not there to the extent that we had planned before the COVID pandemic. And so there is flexibility and understanding with those deposits and those payment needs. So if you are a domestic student and you want to have a conversation about flexibility, whether you are an OSAP student or not, you can email financial aid questions, financialaidquestions at centennialcollege.ca. And I'm sure our folks are typing this in the Facebook Live piece as well, so you don't have to write it down and you have a reference piece. And if you are an international student, the email is internationalclaim@centennialcollege.ca, and you can have a conversation around the circumstances for some flexibility.
And Neil, you know, just the other piece to maybe mention is that there are so many unanswered questions and very individual specific questions. And so in addition to the team here to answer, and Neil and I to answer those general questions, there are also experts on Facebook Live to answer individual questions in the chat or let you know where those can be answered. And I just want to reflect that this has been the most stressful, challenging, difficult semester probably any student could encounter. And I realize some of that frustration has been about getting your questions answered quickly and accurately. So please know that we're working through making every effort to do that for you.
Perfect. Thanks, Marilyn.
Thank you both. Because I'm in client services, I just wanted to reiterate those registration dates of May the 5th for new students and graduating students, and May the 7th for all other students. Just wanted to put that out there again, so folks are aware. Our next question, of course, we've just talked about the new semester, some questions about our winter semester just finishing. When will I get my winter semester grades? And what about the negative impact on grades? And I'm going to throw that one at Neil.
Perfect. Yeah. No, good question. And we're actually right in the midst of that time with processing grades, as most were due just this past Friday, April 24th. And what the team in Enrollment Services is doing today are they'll be rolling grades daily. So you'll start seeing grades in your MyCentennial account as early as today, and that will be ongoing throughout the week. And we're hoping to close the semester by Friday, May 8th. So check your MyCentennial account and you'll start seeing those grades. And checking in on those grades and that status is such a key piece, because there are some different options that are available to you that you hadn't had available before that we're introducing. because as you know, we've been talking about and we've been experiencing, the semester has been hard on everyone. And particularly for you as students trying to navigate all of this uncertainty, and especially if you have been juggling family care and or work and or finding work and or also schooling your children, like all of that comes together in a situation where it's also made engaging in your studies difficult. And so there are some different options, and you would have seen the option for a P grade. So students who have passed their courses, which is typically a letter grade of D or a percentage of 50%, will have the option of choosing a P grade, and this P grade will not impact your overall GPA and will represent that you have passed the course and met the learning requirements for the course. So some courses are ineligible for the P grade, and these courses are a few, and they're listed on our FAQ site. And it's mainly courses where there are accreditation considerations and or regulatory need for a letter grade. So have a look on our FAQ site, because you'll be able to see if that is, if your program is ineligible, but it's mainly the aviation, medical lab, nutrition, occupational therapist, farm tech kinds of programs. You may also not want to exercise the P grade option if you have thought of some of your future plans and some requirements for university and or other college program entries where a minimum grade is required. A minimum grade might also be required as a minimum or a prerequisite for other courses, both in Centennial and outside of Centennial. So while the P grade is there to enable a pass and not affect your GPA, there are these other future piece considerations to think about, because they'll facilitate or inhibit options in the future. And if you are thinking or wondering about those implications, please contact your success advisor for specific advice, because they'll be able to help navigate those pieces specifically for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Neil. I also wanted to mention as well that today the grade change submission form should be accessible through MyCentennial. I think if it's not already, it should be very, very shortly for those students who wish to pursue the P grade grade change. Next question is for, I'm going to direct to Marilyn. My program or co-op is continuing in the summer semester. How can I defer to fall semester?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I know there's been lots of questions about deferring a semester. You know, like the decision of whether or not to go with a P grade versus a numeric grade, which, as Neil, you pointed out, may have some implications if you're planning to articulate into a degree program or some other program at Centennial or another institution. Similarly, this is another one of those really important decisions. One of the challenges in potentially deferring a semester is that not every course is available in every semester. And so by making the decision to defer your semester, you may actually be unwittingly making a decision to defer by more than a semester. On the program website for your program is that listing of what's called the model route, which you're probably already familiar with. That lists all of the courses that you take in each semester, which ones are prerequisites or co-requisite courses. And so really encourage you to take a hard look at that model route and ask yourself, is there a way for me to continue on with my studies, with my program in this semester without deferring? But having said that, Neil, you mentioned all of the financial or all of the other kinds of care or family care or other obligations for international students. I'm sure that your families are really desperately wanting you to come home, and you probably are as well. So recognizing that that's going to be a balance between what you want to do right now versus taking that long-term perspective around completing your education at Centennial. And like Neil, I really encourage you to have a conversation with your success advisor, looking at your model route and just make sure that you have all the facts before you make your decision. And just recognizing that these are decisions that are not easy to make, but in the end, it really is up to you to decide what's best for you and your circumstances.
Thank you, Marilyn. Great information. I also thought for you talk about the success advisors and for the international students as well. I think getting in touch with your international advisor is a great avenue for getting more information on deferring and all of those, the sort of the impacts of that decision. So great information.
Yeah, actually, Gerald, that's such a good point, because for international students, you may have an impact on your study visa. There may be implications for your work permit. Like, there are just so many avenues and angles to this. So for international students particularly, absolutely connect with an international advisor as well as your success advisor, because you'll want to make sure that you have all the facts before you make that big decision.
Great. Next question is coming to Neil. Will the college be helping us through the summer?
It's a good question, Daryl, and we've been working to, and while folks can't see this, and this is just a little aside, and Daryl mentioned this at the beginning, there is a huge team of Centennial College folks throughout the college that are so invested in wanting to make things as easy as possible and as clear as possible for students. So when we're talking about helping, absolutely. So the services are all expanded and they're all available virtually. So if you need help from mental health supports or exercising and our wellness rec programs through to tutoring and learning strategists, all of those pieces will absolutely 100% continue into the summer as they have been established for the winter term. So that piece will absolutely be there. And some of you, just going back to the other question, you might be thinking of deferral because you don't think that this mode of study is for you, or there's some additional needs. And to what Marilyn was mentioning, there are so many implications. So talk with the international advisors and the success advisors and share what your specific concerns are, because there's likely a service or some kind of coaching or help that we can provide in order for you to keep going as you had planned and not think of deferring. So just think of that, because there's a lot to balance with these considerations, particularly OSAP and for international students, the study visa and various other eligibility. In terms of help through the summer financially, we're going into a time again that is unknown, and I very much, and my colleagues also very much, appreciate that financial strain has always been a strain, even at the best of times. And with the COVID pandemic context and businesses shutting down and lost wages as a result of decreased hours and or layoff, and the requirement to potentially purchase internet, it's been more stressful than it would have normally been. So in winter, we did launch the Winter 2020 COVID Relief Bursary and focused on elements that would have not been predictable as a result of the COVID-19 context, that being lost wages, like I mentioned, with respect to layoff or less work, and purchasing internet. And that's why we focused on those pieces for that 5-week period from March 16th to April 17th, because it was unpredicted, and we wanted to provide some relief for those costs that were coming from decreased revenue or some increased costs. That said, we're also now going into a period where you're wondering, and you may be searching for work, and it's not landing, and there's just a little bit more anxiety or effort there, and you're not able to secure that summer work as easily as before. So we're lucky that we're all working as part of an amazing system, and the federal government actually recently discussed and presented and also modified the various programs that they have. So have a look at what is called the CERB, or the Canadian Emergency Response Bursary, and also employment insurance, because those are available to a number of folks who meet the minimums. There's also the Canada Student Service Grant, where students who are volunteering with the COVID-19 response will be eligible for between $1,000 and $5,000 for this volunteer work to help with the overall COVID response. For our domestic students, there's also the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. I think it's going to be pronounced CESB, but have a look at that, because it's going to be able to provide you with living costs for $1,250 a month, plus you're going to be able to work and earn up to $1,000 and still receive that benefit. For international students, there's the removal of the restriction, because you'll know well that when classes are in session, there's a maximum of 20 hours per week that you can work. However, that restriction has been lifted for any work that is in an essential service. So within healthcare, critical infrastructure, food, etc., that you'll be able to work full-time for that. And for international students, keep an eye out on your email and the website, because we'll be looking at launching a summer bursary as well to help attend to some of the needs that you might be having. So have a look, keep an eye out for the website, your email, because a lot of this stuff is emerging and changing. And what we will always make sure is done is that the FAQ site has the most updated and correct information with respect to anything that you are needing. That all said, and the financial context is just so important. If it's confusing, because there are a lot of pieces of information to navigate in different websites with the government and with us and with other forums or blogs that you might be looking at. If you're ever in need of clarification, call our hotline and we will direct you through all of that noise to who you need to speak with, particularly the financial pieces, because I understand that is so pivotal, and we want to make sure that you're getting the right information for your context.
That's great. Thanks, Neil. And again, the website, our FAQs, there's a lot of information there around financial supports on the Student Financial Services webpage, and also the financial aid questions at centennialcollege.ca if you do have some specific questions that you would like to direct right to our Student Financial Services team. Next question, and this is for Neil again. What are some special considerations for international students going into summer and fall?
Okay, thank you, Daryl, and thank you, team, for the questions. And to our international students, thank you, one, for choosing Centennial and for choosing the Greater Toronto area. And we know that this is an especially tough time for you, being far away from your homes, and also worrying about family members and our friends, and how the COVID-19 context is affecting them. So we are definitely wanting to, again, provide as much support and clarity for you, but there are a lot of complexities. And so if you do have specific questions that are beyond what we have in our FAQ, our frequently asked questions website, please contact an international student advisor. And the email is SAGE, S-A-G-E, which stands for Services and Global Experiences. So it's sage@centennialcollege.ca, because we want to make sure that you are feeling confident in how things are impacting you and the choices that you have. But again, the FAQ site has all of this comprehensive information, and there's a specific button or link for international students. And so with respect to some of the new students who are coming into semester one who are joining us, if you have been approved for a study permit, and that approval was from, obviously, for the government for a program starting in May or June, or our summer term, but you're unable to travel to Canada due to travel restrictions, there's no worry, because you are able to begin that program online outside of Canada. So that has been worked through, and your PGWP or postgraduate work permit eligibility will not be affected with these classes now being moved to online delivery. So new students, that is great news. I just want to give a shout out to our colleagues in the IRCC, the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, because they really have been wanting and working so tirelessly to make sure that all of these systems are working for our context and the value that we have on our international students coming as guests to our country. So new students, that's a general context for you in terms of still being able to continue your studies online outside of Canada and still be eligible for the postgraduate work permit. For our returning students, you must, as you know, maintain your valid study permit, whether you're in Canada or abroad. And similar to the new students, the postgraduate work permit eligibility will not be affected with classes that have moved online due to COVID-19. You still do have to complete at least 50% of your coursework of your program studying in Canada to be eligible for the postgraduate work permit. So again, you have to complete at least 50% of the program studying in Canada. So have a look at your model route to make sure that you're making these decisions in a clear and correct manner. So for example, if you're in a 2-semester program, semester 1 might have 19 credit hours per week, and semester 2 might have 20 credit hours per week. So you'll need to look at how some of semester 2 study needs to be within Canada. But again, please connect with Sage at centennialcollege.ca to understand the specific context around your program and also your needs. With respect to the travel exemptions that were announced on March 20th, the travel exemptions do apply for international students, which is, again, fantastic because you're able to come into the country provided that you had a study permit that was approved on or before March 18th. So if that study permit was approved on or before March 18th, you are permitted to come into Canada, and you simply need a 14-day quarantine plan. So when you land, what is your quarantine plan going to look like in terms of no contact with other people, but also plan to still have food delivered. And again, keep an eye out on your email and our website, because we're also looking to see how we can assist with that quarantine plan and different options. And once we have that solidified, we will look to communicate to you. And just going back to Marilyn's question response before with respect to deferring a program, and our advice is, again, to connect, because there's so many different implications with respect to deferring a program, and to let us know why you're thinking of that, because as I mentioned, we do have amazing people in all of our different areas who are committed to working with you within this context so that your life plans still stay on track. If you do want to defer, there are some pieces with respect to it being called an unscheduled break, and it will have implications with respect to your ability to work while still in Canada, and may impact the postgraduate work permit. And you might also not be compliant with your student study visa permit, in which case you will need to also then switch your permit in order to be in Canada. So we'll guide through all of that. If, however, it is a scheduled break, so the summer term, the May to August, is a pause in your model route, you will still be regarded as being compliant with your study permit and can work full-time during that break.
Great, thank you, Neil. Lots of information there for our international students. So I definitely agree. Check in with Sage at centennialcollege.ca if you do have some questions about your progression while you're here at Centennial. Next question. What will the September fall semester look like? And I'm directing this one to Marilyn.
Thank you, Daryl. And okay, I think that's the question that we all desperately want an answer to. And unfortunately, at this time, that's the least clear question. So we've defined our summer semester. Our fall semester, we're looking at 3 possible scenarios. And so let me just tell you a little bit about them. But can I also just say that the questions, which are, I think, absolutely on point, and the answers themselves may be kind of hard to digest. Navigating through post-secondary processes and systems at the best of times is not easy. And I recognize that now it's harder than ever. So again, your success advisors can help route you to the person that can get your question answered, because chances are we're not going to get through every single question in this time that we have here today. But on the fall semester, so what are the 3 scenarios? So the first one is that everything is normal, whatever normal looks like, meaning that we're all back on campus. If that's the case, though, it still will be a very new normal, as I think we can all imagine. For example, it's hard to imagine that having us all, in classes of 40 people or 60 people in a classroom, given that there is an anticipated rebound of the COVID-19 virus, especially, into the fall. So that kind of normal scenario is one that I think is the least likely. The other 2 scenarios that we're actively planning for are a hybrid scenario, meaning that we will have courses online where those courses can be taught online, and at some point in the semester, we have no idea yet as when that would be, to actually be on campus with physical distancing for practical and applied learning activities. So for example, learning in the labs, that where there was a lab section of 25, that may not be a safe number of people given close proximity. So that lab section might be a lot smaller. That might also have an impact on scheduling, meaning that because we want to make sure that everyone gets the opportunity to come on campus, engage in that applied learning, that some of the schedules may be outside of the regular sort of 8:30 to 4:30 timeframe. And I recognize for many of our programs, for example, in the School of Engineering and Technology and Applied Science, School of Hospitality, Tourism, and Culinary Arts, those schedules are already well into the evening hours as well as on weekends. So that's the hybrid scenario. And then the third scenario is, I think, the one that we're all fervently hoping is not the case, but I need to be honest, I think we realistically have to plan for, and therefore we are planning for, and that is where we're not able to get back onto campus in the fall semester, and that courses will be online. That may have implications for some programs. And so we'll know probably towards the end of June. And again, that's a guess, might be sooner, might be a little bit later, exactly what that scenario is going to look like. But I think for you as students, know that the fall semester is likely not going to be a regular normal semester, not the one that you signed up for. And so I recognize that you also want to make decisions about what's best for you. We want you to think about the long-term implications of completing your education, completing your credential. At the same time, I also respect that, that you have some choices to make and some tough decisions to make.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I'm going to throw that the same question over to Neil to talk a little bit about from the service perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Daryl. And so similar to what Marilyn overviewed, we're planning for everything that the academic area is planning on. And so what you'll see from the service perspective is, like I mentioned before, all of the services that you have come to expect and that you need for your success will pivot online and or back in person, depending on the context, because we know we need to be fluid. The other piece for those students who are joining as prospective students and or interested, the offer letters for new students began earlier this winter term, so in January, February times, and we'll continue to process and extend offers to new applicants. And just to reiterate what Marilyn mentioned, that it will be a different type of term than when you applied, because in January you applied thinking X, Y, and Z, and now we're looking at X, Y, and Z plus A, B, and C. But know that, again, you have our commitment with clear communication and supports and services there to enable you through this to the best of our ability for the context.
Great, thank you, Neil. Next question, I'm gonna take this one back to Marilyn. How does online learning work? I think this is maybe for some of our incoming students. And how will it impact our future careers with fewer experiential opportunities?
This is a really critical question. And let me share a couple of thoughts about online learning. And I recognize that where that question is coming from is in your commitment to wanting the best quality learning experience that you can in preparation for your future career. So a really high stakes question. I think that there is sometimes a perception that online learning is less than or not as good or effective as face-to-face learning. And I just want to reflect that everyone has their own learning style, and full disclosure, I've taught both in the class and online for close to 20 years. And my own personal experience, as well as tons of published studies, show that online teaching and learning can be every bit as effective as face-to-face learning. So given all of the supports that we have mobilized and the faculty who are expert in their fields, as well as leveraging technology and software and simulations, that we are committed to giving you an online learning experience that is every bit as quality, as engaging as the face-to-face teaching. Having said that, I also recognize that this is new to many of you and that it demands self-motivation and that kind of self-regulatory aspect that's different when you know that you have to show up for class at 8:30 on that Monday morning. Although, having taught an 8:30 Monday morning class, I will say that not everyone does actually show up for that 8:30 class. So just like it's easy to get disengaged in an online environment, it's also easy to get disengaged in a classroom environment too. And so all of the student supports and counseling and accessibility and peer tutoring, that we are mobilizing that around you in this online experience. And just let me finish by talking about the piece about, am I employable if part of my credential has been completed online? And I would say unequivocally, yes, you are, because what you are gaining is a Centennial College credential, a credential that is respected, that is known, that has an international reputation, and that with that credential in hand, you also have access to a whole array of learning and career services supports. Maybe, I don't know if that's coming up in another question, but we can talk about that as well. And you have access to those for a fair amount of time after you graduate. So I'm not sure if that gets at the whole question, but I hope conveys the sense that online learning can absolutely can be as effective as face-to-face.
Great, thanks, Marilyn. Our next question sort of kind of piggybacks or pivots back to an earlier question where Neil talked about the financial supports for students. And one of the the question we've had asked a lot is, will there be refunds or a reduction in tuition for online learning? So I'm gonna send that to Neil for response.
Yeah, thanks, Daryl. And thanks to the folks who noted this question. And as Daryl mentioned, it's been one of the most frequent of our frequently asked questions. And as I've been talking with students over the phone or by email or through different forums like the Students Association, I've come to understand this as a really important need, particularly from a financial perspective, where students are saying, hey, there's been a lot of unknown, and we're worried about the ability to afford rent and food. So is there some flex within the tuition structure to put more money in our pockets? So that's what I've come to understand. And I also want to give a shout out to the Students Association, the CCSAI, who have very articulately and very respectfully represented student voices in this regard. So the answer to whether there'll be refunds or a reduction is yes and no. And so I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. And so the total cost for education is comprised of two components. We have tuition and we have our fees. So tuition is the one piece, and that goes primarily to our quality instructors and the quality learning environment and the quality and robust services that you have come to expect. The fee component is with respect to our ancillary fees and also program specific incidental fees. So the fee component really are these other pieces with respect to athletics and recreation, leadership programming, careers, access to legal aid that are part of the ancillary bundle, and your program incidental fees, which help either provide you with certain tools or equipment. So for example, if you're a hospitality student, or access to different online resources. For example, if you're in various programs that have good online content and paying that fee. So total cost, two components, tuition and fees. The tuition component, as I mentioned, pays for the quality piece, and the faculty, like Marilyn mentioned earlier, are phenomenal. They are industry experts, and they are working tirelessly and have always worked tirelessly in order to ensure that you are provided with the best type of learning environment for your career success. And that is something that we are not going to compromise on in terms of serving your career needs with what you've trusted in terms of investing to us. And that cost is fixed regardless of the type of modality that we're in, whether it be in person or online. So tuition specifically, that one piece, there is no flexibility in terms of refund or reduction. That said, let's talk about the fee component, the ancillary fees and the program incidental fees. We agree that students should not be paying for goods or services that you don't have access to because facilities are closed or that cannot be scaled virtually. And so as a result, the fee component in terms of ancillary fees and incidental fees will be lower to a certain extent. For the summer term, ancillary fees will be saving you for the semester at least $190. So that you will see. The program incidental fees will also have a different amount associated with it. And so have a look at your statement because that will depend on the program. In some cases, there won't be a reduction in program incidental fees because all of those materials or those resources are still going to be purchased and you're going to be provided with. But in some cases, it could be up to a $500 reduction in those incidental fees based on the program being online. But have a look at your fee statement for that. And all of that is, as I mentioned before, in addition to the various services that will pivot online to be there for your success. We've also, and if you haven't accessed this already, there is still time to submit for the winter COVID relief bursary, and that is due April 30th. We also have purchased 5,000 Chromebooks and have given quite a few out, but there's still more if you are needing access to a device in order to engage in studies. And all of this also, in addition to the various government supports that I mentioned earlier, but are all within our FAQ site in order to position you for success financially.
Great. Thank you, Neil. Lots of great information there about services and supports and how the fees work. Can be complicated, but it's nice that you provided some clarity. Last of our questions before we go to our actual live questions, that just so everybody knows, the questions that we have been sharing with Neil and Marilyn have come from the collection taken last week from you out there, our students. And we're going to go to some live ones shortly. But our last question from the questions of last week: will students graduate on time, and how will the college support students with the job search?
Thanks for that. And I mean, every student, the thing that you most look forward to is, or at least the thing I most looked forward to, was the finish line and graduation. And so I want to be totally honest and say that no, not every single student will graduate on time, but faculty have moved heaven and earth to make sure that as many of you can as possible. And I guess going back to my earlier comment about online teaching and learning, is that there are, especially in colleges where we have such robust applied hands-on lab-based learning in many of our programs, that not everything can be put online. And so there are a number of programs where there is some additional work to do on campus or through your clinical or field placement in order to graduate. And I think it really reflects the lens that faculty bring to wanting the very best for our students, that they are looking very carefully and have been at every single course and those course learning outcomes to determine what can be online, what can't. In terms of career development, as I mentioned earlier, the Career Center is committed to supporting you and recognizing that in this climate, I can't think of a harder time to be graduating and looking for a job. But having said that, there are jobs out there. This economy will reopen. It will be a new normal and a new reality. And not to say, I mean, there aren't a lot of silver linings to this situation, but I guess if there is one, it's that your engagement over the last 5 weeks in the teaching at a distance and online learning that you've been doing actually reflects what's happening in industry, at least those that have been able to keep their doors open. But we know that technology and digital communication is going to be more than ever a part of virtually every profession. And so even further mobilizing the kinds of career supports and job search preparation skills that we can through the career services area. There's also a website that if you haven't seen it, check it out. We've had some employers reach out to us with jobs that they need students to fill. So that might be a place in the meantime to take a look at.
Great.
And just to add on to that, Marilyn, sorry, is that okay, Daryl? Okay. And just to add on, and Marilyn, you're right, like the finish line is so important and so key. And there's so many folks invested in getting you through to the finish line. And Marilyn overviewed all of those so well. In addition, our Board of Governors members are contacting us for how they can also help have that conversation with you. Our alumni are calling us and asking how they can help have that conversation with you. And other employers are also connecting, like Marilyn said, and we're passing out that information on the job board. So there are so many folks, notwithstanding the fact that we're going into and are in a complex unknown time. You have a community behind you who is really invested in getting you through to the finish line. And speaking of that finish line, convocation is typically that finish line for so many of us. And if you've been to our convocations, they're phenomenal. It's one of the best convocations I've ever seen. Of course, because of the public health context, we can't have gatherings and our facilities are closed, but our team keeping that commitment to getting you through to the finish line and doing it in such a quality way has created a virtual convocation. And so we had our first pilot with these virtual forums with our virtual open house last weekend. And the virtual convocation is in the last bits of planning detail to launch to you. It'll be sometime in June. I hear you might want to keep June 30th free in your schedules, just sort of hold that for now, but more details will come out with respect to what and that virtual convocation looks like and when that virtual convocation will be. And this is something to think about because we'll send this assessment after the virtual convocation. We also know that it's nice to come together and important to come together as a community to celebrate accomplishments. And that unfortunately won't be over the summer, though the virtual convocation will be fantastic. The in-person piece as a community won't be possible in the summer. So we're going to be asking you through this survey post-virtual convocation what that could and should look like as we get to probably sometime in 2021. And if we do host something, one, what should that look like? Two, would you come just so that we can, for the class of 2020, get together again, especially for the class of 2020, given all that we've collectively gone through to celebrate what has been an even more so amazing accomplishment. We've also been talking about throughout all this, in terms of getting to the finish line, to connect with your success advisors and or international advisors for specific information about deferral options, about the different financial aid pieces, and what we're going to be doing, and you'll see this again, so check your email on the FAQ side, is working with the success advisors for some other forums like this that are specific to your program, so that if you're sending an email and the success advisors are processing a number of them in order to get back to every student with the richness in terms of context that is needed, that there's also this piece from the success advisors around program specific information that you can connect into with forums specifically with them. So have a look at that, because I just wanted to share that I appreciate that we're saying contact them, but they're also in high demand. So we will be working with them for these more group advising large forums so that you can get that's program specific information.
Great, thanks, Neil. Those are great responses because they also answered a couple of our live questions that I was going to present. So that was great. I also wanted to mention as well that again, going to our FAQs on the website, there is a section under the academic FAQs that does provide information on school contacts. So the success advisors, if you're not sure how to contact your success advisor, the information is definitely provided in those the tables of information around contact. A question from our live audience, and I think I'm going to direct this one to Marilyn. I just, for a split second there, forgot your name. What should nursing students expect if programming is canceled 2 semesters in a row? Should we be looking into alternate schools? Is the school speaking with the College of Nurses of Ontario?
I'm glad that this question came up, and I can only imagine how upsetting and stressful this must be for students in our nursing programs as well as other programs that were suspended this summer. And you know, any program that has a regulatory body attached to it, and particularly at this time more than ever, first responders and healthcare providers clearly in such demand, so much need for them. So let me say this, 2 things. We have absolutely been in contact with the College of Nurses of Ontario, as well as for other programs like our aviation programs, Transport Canada, and other regulatory bodies to determine, you know, and work collaboratively with them in planning out programs and our offerings. The reason that the summer semester had to be suspended for our nursing programs particularly is that hospitals, particularly UHN and other hospitals, actually closed to students until July 6th. And those clinical placements, that's the crux of that semester. So now we're seeing a little bit of relaxing of that, not specifically UHN or not naming specific hospitals, but a sense that students now may be able to start to resume field or clinical placements as that economy kind of starts to open up. So this is one where I don't have a clear answer, but I will say that educating future nurses is a top priority of the Ontario government. And so the thought that we're just going to, as a system, colleges and universities suspend nursing programs for the foreseeable future doesn't seem like something that would be possible. So I think this is one where I'm just going to have to ask to please stay tuned, stay in contact with your department chair, with your academic coordinator of your programs. And I think it's probably warranted to have some specific sessions with program areas specifically for nursing and some of those other ones that are impacted by regulatory bodies.
Great. Thank you, Marilyn. So we're winding down on time, so I'm going to try and get us a few more questions in here just before we finish. Next question, what is the last date to sign promissory notes?
Do we have an answer to that? I'm not sure, and I feel like this may be reflecting some of the frustration that you as students have, where you're asking really important questions, like you need to know that information, not getting the answer. This one, as well as some of the other ones that we're getting in the live feed. Oh, and here I'm just looking, we have a little chat going. So last date is the last day of registration. So the last day of registration, Neil is the registration guru, as I think you heard, is which date?
The last day for registration is May 5th or May 7th. So May 5th being the date if you're a new student or a graduating student. And if you're a continuing student, it's May 7th. And so that would be the last day to sign those promissory notes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Actually, I think just to clarify, working in client services, and I get all those dates going across my desk. The dates that Neil mentioned are the dates when actually registration opens. And then, so the last date to register would be what we call our add drop date, which would be Monday, May 11th. So that would be the last date for promissory notes, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully that is the correct information for our folks.
And thank you for that clarification, Daryl. And let's commit to that. So just so that folks can leave here with that clarity. And given what you've said, you're right. It's May 11th would be the last date to sign the promissory notes, and we'll work with folks behind the scenes for that.
Great.
And can I just say, you know, I think as students, you may be feeling like, okay, well, even this exchange that just happened, like, how is it possible that they don't know the answer right there and then? And I just want to say a huge thank you for patience under great duress and forbearance under times of incredible stress. That, like you, this is new for us too. I don't think any institution, like where has it ever happened that in 5 days, our faculty would have had to transition every single course in this college to online, and the heroic work they did to do that. And then as students to engage in this completely different way of learning, and now planning for a new academic year that none of us could have imagined. So I just want to say we may not have the immediate answer, and sometimes the answer might change, and sometimes we might need to go back and say, you know what, we made a mistake and we need to fix it. And so I just want to say, I think that's a reflection, but know that our intention is to do absolutely everything we can for you as students to get you to the finish line, but also get you the job that you want, the job you deserve.
Great. That's great news for our students. Thanks, Marilyn. Last question, and then we'll have to wrap up. So this is from our live audience. What about the English assessment? Students aren't able to register in person or online. How can I write my skills assessment?
So, and I hope, now this might be one of those times when I give an answer and then someone has to go back and say, actually, the VP of Academic made a mistake. But given for the English assessments, our English department in the School of Advancement has a solution, which is not the usual English assessment that you're using. And so that solution is an online solution. It's one that you don't have to come and do in person. And I'm not sure if there's anyone from our English department who's on Facebook Live right now, but they could clarify that. My understanding is it's called Duolingo, and it's one that they are working with other colleges and universities, if I'm not mistaken, so that there's kind of some consistency in kind of how colleges and universities are working with those English assessments.
Yeah, and just to build on what Marilyn mentioned, what we'll do in the Facebook live stream, because your students are also seeing a lot of the resources, the websites and the email addresses streamed there for you. We'll put that on as well, the Duolingo link, because it's available online and you can register to start that now.
Oh my gosh, and so now talk about going back and fixing it. Isn't June 1st the last day to register for summer? And it might be, so maybe so never mind the May 11th. Maybe you all just got a 3-week extension in terms of the promissory notes. So let's make sure we clarify that, and we will get it updated in the FAQ and like bold, underline in red so that
Yeah.
it's absolutely clear. And again, apologies for, so it's Facebook Live, right? And it's like not rehearsed, not scripted, but we're here for you.
Well, thank you, Marilyn and Neil. Unfortunately, we are out of time. And thank you to our students for your honest, thoughtful, and probing questions. We hope that this hour with Neil and Marilyn has provided insightful information and clarified a lot of your unanswered questions. We certainly didn't have time to answer all of your questions and all the ones that were submitted. So if you still have questions, please go to our COVID-19 Information Center webpage, where we have several FAQ pages. Also, underneath our live broadcast, there are some links during the live stream that are available as well. All of those will get you the information you need and get you connected to our academic and service needs. In these unprecedented times, we all need to stand together, and we truly hope our family, friends, and their loved ones remain safe, and that these worrying times will soon end. We will get through this together. Thank you very much, and stay safe.
Thanks, take care, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll get through this.
Yes.
Take care.